Once again, we gather in search of the truth, dark, and mystery. It's the Drunk Turkey Show.
Big development today in the investigation into the murders of 4 University of Idaho students. According to state and local officials and court documents, 28-year-old Bryan Christopher Kohberger,
Bryan Kohberger,
has been arrested. He was arrested and arraigned this morning in Pennsylvania.
We have new details on what Bryan Kohberger was doing right before his arrest. Police says a tactical team burst in to arrest the Idaho murder suspect. He was in pajamas and latex gloves, stuffing trash into Ziploc bags.
Hey, greetings from the year 3000. It still sucks. This is Philip J. Fry, and you're listening to the Drunken Turkey Show. Your one stop for this sort of thing. Hit that button, like and subscribe. You know what to do, just like every other podcast.
Just like every other podcast, guys. What is up, everybody? Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, ring that notification bell. I think today we have a pretty packed show for you guys. I got a couple of guests waiting back, some familiar faces from the channel. They're going to be joining us here in a little bit. But before we get into all that, first I want to say hit the like button, subscribe. You guys know what to do. But happy 4th of July. Hope everybody's safe. There's this flood that's going on just north of where I'm at. And our thoughts and prayers are out to everybody out there on the Guadalupe River who are impacted by the flooding that is happening. Our thoughts and prayers go out to you guys. And today, what we're going to talk about is, so I've come across some information, and I'm going to break it down for you guys today. But you guys are familiar with, and I'm sure everybody that is tuning in on true crime right now is probably familiar with one of the largest true crime mysteries that happened a couple of years back with Gabby Petito and Brian Laundrie, where Brian Laundrie ended up driving across country in Gabby Petito's van back to his home in Florida without Gabby Petito. His parents have been sued civilly, and it comes to my understanding that they may have known a little bit more information that they were trying to elude. There was a letter that came out saying something to the effect, hide the bodies, burn after reading, those type of things. And so with the information that I got today or here recently, I think we might be able to look at Bryan Kohberger's family and his parents and wonder, did they do the same? Did they fly, Michael Kohberger, the father of the murderer, across country in efforts to bring him home, to elude capture, or I don't know, but we'll break it down. We'll talk about it today. So I'm just going to take a few minutes to break this down, and then we'll go through it. The first thing I want to do is I'm going to read a couple of pages from Howard Bloom's book, who's agreed to be on the channel. I'm going to find out a little bit later on today exactly when he's going to be on, but probably aiming for Monday or Tuesday. But a couple of things that I want to break down. So it says here in Howard Bloom's book that just 5 days earlier, and he's referencing to Michael Kohberger, flew off the sunshine of Philadelphia to Seattle, then caught a twin-engine M-Bar E-70 jet for 1 hour or so shuttle flight into the dark, frigid Pullman, Washington. Well, that's not 100% true, but yes, Bryan Kohberger's father had purchased a plane ticket from Philadelphia directly into the Pullman Moscow airport. Now, when did he go in, right? That's going to be a big question, right? When did he fly in? Now, we know that Bryan Kohberger was in Albrightsville, Pennsylvania on the evening of December 16th. Now, according to this book here, Howard Bloom says that it was a 4-day trip. So you have the 16th, the 15th, the 14th, and leaving on the 13th for 4 days of driving. But so let's continue this. So this goes on to say that at a certain point, just a few days before Michael Kohberger is to leave from Seattle to Pennsylvania, that he's talking to his mechanic and he's calling his son Dr. Christopher Kohberger. Now, first and foremost, I want to say I have no doubt in my mind that it was initially planned that Bryan Kohberger was going to go home for Christmas. I have no doubt in that. Where I become real speculative is the timing, and did something change, right? Because we knew he was in Albrightsville, Pennsylvania on December 16th. I can say that they had left the 12th, I believe, the 13th, I'm sorry. And Well, let's continue reading this. So in the book, Howard Bloom talks about some problems that Bryan Kohberger had as a child. He was a troubled youth. And it goes on to say that Michael would share with his own 2 grown daughters, and who's a psychologist, another one who's an actress, that there's no telling what Bryan might do next. Now, I found that interesting because this is before he flew out there. This is one of the reasons why he flew out there. I didn't catch this part of what he had said until I went back and reread it. But it sounds like they were onto something. They were onto something. And that was arguably why he decided to make the tedious and exhausting trip out to Pullman, Washington, and then not much more than 24 hours later, turn around if on a dime to make even more. So he was there for less than 24 hours, Michael Kohberger, and he traveled with Bryan Kohberger back across country. And it goes on to say that there was 4 long days trapped shoulder to shoulder for nearly claustrophobic Hyundai Elantra, which I kind of spoke about. It says here, in the weeks before heading off to Pennsylvania, Michael had done some of his homework sitting at his computer console, and he talked with his son about flights. Now, why this is important is, and let me pull this up real quick. Oh no, hold on. I accidentally hit something. Bryan Kohberger was a TA. He was a teacher's assistant. And if we were to go to the fall of 2022, fall semester did not end, or finals were not done before Christmas break until December 16th, the day that he was in Albrightsville, Pennsylvania. So he left December, I think it was like 11th or 12th. Michael Kohberger flew out December 11th, landed, I think, December 12th, and they turned around December 13th and drove across country. Now, why would they? Let's go to the next page real quick. There is no early examination, so a student will now be granted a special examination for the purpose of leaving the institution before the close of the semester. So how did they anticipate, if this was something that was planned so long ago, which I don't disagree that it wasn't. There's some information here where it talks about, this is from Bryan Kohberger's mother, says, today my 26-year-old son, which is weird because I think he was 27 at the time, left for Washington State to begin his doctorate in criminology. I probably won't be submitting much designs because I'll be crying my eyes out. At another post, she puts out there that he'll be home for nearly a month in Christmas. So let's see, I want to just kind of find that specific part. It says right here, super happy getting ready for my son's visit home in a week or so. Now, I wish I would have known what day these were exactly, so it's kind of help us out a little bit. But we know that Bryan Kohberger got pulled over on the 15th. He was in Indiana, and that takes more than a day to get there. And they went a significantly longer route. So again, the 13th, 9 hours away from home. Now, here we go. So what day did he fly out? So from what I found out is that Michael Kohberger took Alaskan Airline 23 from Philadelphia to Seattle at 4:50 p.m. on December 11th. And he was to arrive in Pullman, but because of a weather delay, he lands in, he has to go to Spokane, and he arrives there at 9:34 p.m. on Monday, December the 12th. And the very next morning, they're driving off from Pullman across country. Now, I bring up his schedule because he's a TA, and, well, what are the responsibilities of a TA? During WSU Pullman Finals Week, a teacher's assistant is primarily responsible for supporting students and the course instructor. This includes proctoring exams, grading assignments, holding the office for student support, and potentially assisting with the preparation and breakdown of final exam spaces. TAs may also participate in curriculum evaluation meetings, particularly in the final week of the semester. So he was supposed to be busy. If this was planned a while in advance, right? If this was planned well in advance, why did they plan for Michael Kohberger to arrive at the beginning of finals week? Makes zero sense. Makes zero sense. Now, from what I understand, and let's bring this back up, Brian's dad called to get a flight the night before. So he purchased this flight ticket on December 10th. Now, I always think that they always had this plan. Now, I wouldn't be surprised if we find out later on that, Michael Kohberger was supposed to fly in, but that flight was supposed to be after finals week, after December 16th. All right. And I think he changed it. Now, why would they change it? I mean, what's the difference of 4 to 5 days? Like, because I know some people might say, well, he was getting trouble at WSU, and you're absolutely right. He was getting in trouble at WSU. But even if he was, for a family who's broke, to change flight plans like that and to go from one day to the next and then fly directly into, well, at least the plan was to fly directly into Pullman. Kind of weird, right? Now, what happened around that time? Well, December 7th is when law enforcement drops their bolo. That bolo is for a white Elantra. Now, to me, it seems like everybody was excited. It seems like people leading up to the couple of days before he were to fly out, that people were, his family was excited. Something changed on a dime, and I think it was that bolo. This also goes on to say his connecting flight got canceled because of weather, so he stayed over in Seattle and was flying to Spokane on 12/12. Also, in the same phone call on 12/10, he scheduled an additional flight for 1:20:23 from Moscow Pullman to Philadelphia, which leads me to believe that he had plans on driving back with Bryan. Now, his mom said something about that he was supposed to be gone for nearly a month. I mean, that's him from the 16th. Let's just say they took off 4 days beforehand. That's the 16th as well. So that's actually a month that he would have been in that area. But the crazy thing is, though, school started before then. First term of instruction was January 9th, 2023. So they did plan to go back. They just planned to go back a lot later. Maybe this is because he was telling him that what was bothering him so much was because he was losing his job, or why he was acting different was because he was losing his job. I don't know. But they dropped everything on a dime to fly directly to him before the school ended. And if this is true, that he booked another flight over a month in advance, why would he book a plane flight from one day to the next if this was planned so early? You guys let me know in the comment section. Right now, I'm going to bring in our guests so they can let us know what they think about the entire situation. We're going to start off with Kevin from Yellow Cottage Tales. Welcome to the show, Kevin, and Dr. Vona. Dr. Vona, how's it going?
Hi.
Hey, Dan, good to be here, and nice to meet you, Doctor.
Same with you.
Now, I know we are putting this out there for a couple of different streams. So for the streams that aren't familiar, we'll start off with Kevin. If you want to introduce yourself and what your channel's about.
Hey, I think most of the people on your channel probably are familiar with me because we've done a lot of shows between us together before, either on my channel or on your channel. But my name is Kevin Lenahan, and I am a YouTuber on a channel called Yellow Cottage Tales. And we have been doing more and more true crime over the last year, particularly the Karen Reed case. But we'd like to, like Dan, we'd like to take a both sides, calm, objective look, not only at cases overall, but at each individual piece of evidence that comes through in a case. But thank you for having me here, Dan.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Thank you for joining us. It's always a pleasure talking to you. And Dr. Vona, if you wouldn't mind.
Hi, I'm Dr. Jaime Vona. I've been a psych professor for 20 years. I'm now a true crime content creator, the mind behind true crime with Dr. Vona. And your family is my family. So I think everybody I see in chat are people that we know from being on the shows together. So welcome, everyone, and happy 4th of July.
Yes, happy 4th of July. So, Dr. Vona, I was interested to talk to you about the specific timing in which Bryan Kohberger was trying to leave on December 11th, or his father flying in the week of finals. For somebody who's obviously in a position to know, what is week of finals like for a student?
It's crazy. So I would think that would be the week that you would need to maintain office hours. So if your students have, now I will say, you said it was the 11th, right? Because by the 11th, I was already done my finals and I was preparing to start my summer class the very next week. My summer class was over by my birthday on June 27th. So, and that was summer one. So people do have to remember that he was probably done the first week in May, unless we know different. Does it say that it was different than that? Because I was done by then.
It says it starts December 11th is when finals start.
Oh, well, then if finals started, then that means that they go back a little bit later than I do. So then, yeah, if finals were that week, Daniel, then this is so out of the norm, because this would be the week that you would need your TA, if anything, because you have all of your finals, all of your classes. I teach 7 classes, 8 classes sometimes. So that's 7 or 8 different finals. So I definitely would need help if I had a TA. I don't. If I had one, this is when I would need them.
Yeah, see, finals started actually December 12th, Monday.
Wow.
Father flew in December 11th, so the week of, and they took off December 13th. So the Tuesday, and finals didn't end until December 16th. So he was already gone. Now I do know that they had a meeting and they talked about him. Maybe they fired him, but let's just say that he was aware of his termination, and he calls mom and dad and says, "Hey, I lost my TA job. Blah 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 blah." If they had this planned and they had tickets already purchased, and let's just say that flight was supposed to be the 17th, the Saturday after the 11th. I mean, if you're financially struggling, don't you have to have a really big motive to make that financial move? I mean, I'm assuming it's going to cost something to move up your flight.
So I was going to say, do we know that it costs extra for him to move his flight up? So that would, I would need to know more about that. This is my thing. I like to give people the benefit of the doubt. If anything, in my head, just giving them the benefit of the doubt, I would say that they probably knew that there was something wrong. And maybe the mom and dad and the sisters even had a conversation. Who knows about, like, you guys, could this be? But as far as what he told them, I want to give the benefit of the doubt that he probably just said that he was having troubles with school, or that, he was going to figure it out. But so I feel like maybe, and again, this is just me giving him the benefit of the doubt, but I wouldn't be surprised if we found out different. But then again, even if we found out different, Daniel, being a parent myself, and I please don't come for me, anyone, but that's a bit like tough position. Like, I don't know to put, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know that he would have even put his dad in that position, because I don't know that him and his dad were that close. We know that day that everybody thought that he called his dad, that he called his mom. So yeah, I don't know.
What about you, Kevin? What do you think about the timing in which his parents decide to send father out there to pick him up?
Yeah, I don't know, because obviously they knew he had a troubled past with his heroin addiction in high school, and we don't know to what extent. We've seen the deep, dark messages that he had posted in social media back when he was going through that. And that's probably just the tip of the iceberg versus what the family would have seen and what they would know about. So they probably would have been very happy that this kid had moved on with his life and was going on to graduate school. But they would have been very nervous and anxious, I think, about what was really going on with him. He didn't seem to live that kind of normal life where you're 27 and you're dating. And he had a very different kind of life there. And I'm sure that they had a sense that they would have been happy to see him reach 30 and have a normal life and all that stuff. I would think they were probably wary of all that. So what were they picking up here? Were they picking up problems with the career? I don't know. It's you have to really dig into the timelines like you're doing, Dan, to try to figure out if there's truly something suspicious, that they had any indication that they suspected he might have been involved with a crime.
And there's a difference between suspecting and knowing, right?
Yeah.
Like, did he tell me, or do we just suspect it because of his past?
Well, what if I added this aspect to it?
Uh-oh.
His sister reported him to the FBI
before
the flight was purchased.
Wow.
Okay. Then that tells me at least that the family thought that there's a possibility. Whether he said that he did it is a different story, but that would tell me that they definitely had a conversation about it.
Yeah. That has been something that has been brought to my attention, and that from a very, very reliable source, that sister called the FBI.
I thought that was like around Christmas.
No, once mom and dad got word that she called the FBI, they sent dad down there.
And I wonder what made her suspicious in the first place.
Well, The book talks about him having a troubled childhood. He stole one of his sister's phones to support his drug habit when he was younger. So I wouldn't be surprised if there was some other things. I've heard some other things that may have been weird by Bryan Kohberger. But I'm not sure. I mean, I think that she probably put two and two together, saw that he was, maybe talking to their mom or dad, talking about how maybe he's acting weird, or just bringing up the subject. I mean, the mass murders were the murder of the 4 victims there became high publicity. So I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, he's a criminology student. He lives 10 miles away. Why wouldn't his parents be asking him questions about it?
Do you think they would have asked?
Yeah.
I think they would have asked, like, what do you think? What have you heard? Things like that. I mean, there was a lot of people who were trying to get involved in this case because their child attended WSU or University of Idaho, and their child had nothing to do with it, but they, wanted to figure out what was going on so bad. I wouldn't be surprised. And him being a criminal justice student, you would probably expect him to want to talk about that, given that's his topic of interest.
I don't know if he was the one involved, though, that he would want to talk about it. You guys have to remember, he's a manipulator. So, and he didn't just turn into one. So I feel like he probably has some form of manipulation that he has with his family to begin with. So I don't know. I don't know that I think that he would have even confessed to that, because didn't his mom try to get him not to fight it, because she really thought that he was innocent. So I don't know. I feel like he would have said he was innocent to them, but that's just my opinion. I could be wrong, but I do think that they probably definitely thought that he was suspect.
Yeah, his dad in this book, I'm trying to find the exact words, but he mentions it to somebody else that his son is a master of disguise.
There you go. That says it right there. Which means that even if the parents had an inkling about it, that would say to me that even if they did bring it up to him, that he probably has a way with words and a way with manipulating them. That, like, remember we said before about like bias, that even, about the Bryan Kohberger thing, how it had nothing to do with it. But if the dad could like possibly think like, ooh, maybe there's something else, just not my son, you're going to think that. You don't want to think that you gave birth to a monster. You know what I mean?
Yeah. He goes on. He says it right here. He says,
wow.
Oh man, I lost it. He wanted to explore close up which version of Bryan, who had shown himself to be a master of disguise, was now presenting to the world.
Mm-hmm.
And so this was what apparently Michael Kohberger told somebody, that Howard Bloom interviewed, one of his sources. He wanted to see for himself. To me, it just kind of seems like if you're picking up and you're leaving that quick, I mean, what's 4 days? What's 5 days? You know what I mean? If you already had something planned.
Unless they were afraid that he would do something in those 4 or 5 days. Like maybe he was so stressed that like they wanted to get to him before he relapsed or something in their head. I don't know. I would feel like that you would try to not want to think that your son did this, even if you had a conversation. So even if the dad did go out there, wait, isn't the new book, didn't they come out with an excerpt yesterday that said that the dad goes on to see the mom's childhood best friend and tells them like, he definitely didn't do this. There's going to be so much stuff coming out at trial. So I feel like his dad, and I mean, unless his dad was just denying it or playing a role there, but I would like to think, I don't know.
Supposedly another excerpt came out that the Amazon Prime is going to say that Bryan Kohberger was Papa Roger.
Oh.
And so
was who?
Papa Roger. Papa Roger was a Facebook personality, I would say. It was the picture looked eerily like Bryan Kohberger. I'll see if I can pull it up. And he had made some interesting statements. One of them was that he believed that the knife sheath was left behind, which was, before anybody found out about that. But that was somewhat rumored early on. But he had some other things, and some of the ways that he would ask questions were very eerily to like the questions from the Reddit survey, like where do you think they answered from? Who do you think the target was? What do you think? Was it all or 4 or 1? Why do you think he didn't, take out the other one? Was it exhaustion or didn't see him? Those type of questions that were very eerily similar. In fact, Chat GPT looked at the questions and some of the comments that Papa Roger account was making, and it said that they believe with 95% certainty that they are the same person.
So did he? I was just going to ask you, anyways. But did this Papa Roger indicate in any way who the target might have been, or do we have any new evidence? Because nothing really seemed to come out at the hearing yesterday about who, if anybody, he was targeting.
They just kind of say that it sounds like the third floor was the target, because they go on to say they don't know if all, which was really upset me. Right, what upset me wasn't the fact that they got the plea deal, and he's going to serve life. What upset me is that he doesn't have any accountability. He doesn't have to say who the target was. He doesn't have to say what he's done with the murder weapon, what his plan was. Steve Gonsalves came out on or the Gonsalves family came out with a statement basically saying, we want to know when the beginning of the end was. And during their state's argument of what their case would have been, he goes on to say, we don't know these questions, we don't know those questions. And all I could think of was, well, you screwed it up, man. You could have asked him those questions and had those questions be an answer to your as a part of the plea. And that's the part that really just drives me up the wall. More so than
did this online persona though ever say anything about who the target might have been, since he was obviously right about the sheath?
They asked others. They said they would post like, so who do you guys think the target was?
But he wouldn't answer it.
They didn't really answer, but they did ask the questions. And he was very aggressive too. I've always thought it was him.
Yeah, Chloe comes in saying Papa Roger made his own Facebook group after being kicked out of this group. An initial cover photo was a profile only photos of Maddie. Oh, that's weird. I didn't know that. But to me, if that ends up being the case, and he's talking about the knife sheath being left behind, that's kind of prior knowledge of information before it was released, don't you think?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because just because you have a knife doesn't necessarily mean that you had a sheath.
Yeah. No, you're absolutely right. And so, to me, I think, just kind of wrap up that aspect of it. The were they aware? Were they not aware? I think there's some evidence here that, sister calling the FBI shortly after the bolo. From one day to the next, he's flying out and flying straight there. And the next morning, they're leaving town. I don't know. Those kind of dots connect in one direction to me.
You don't think it could have been that, like, they already talked about it? Maybe they thought he relapsed or something?
Well,
or that he might?
Okay. Let's add this too. One of the things that we did learn was that Bryan Kohberger's vehicle was in his garage. It's a Hyundai Elantra. It's not like it's a Camaro or Corvette or anything special that you want to put in a garage. It's coming from Washington State, and he doesn't have a garage there, so it's out in the elements there all day, every day. And so he has it in the garage with a bucket of cleaner right next to it. You don't think his parents, for one, knew about that?
Oh, it definitely seems at some point they must have known. But I thought the question was whether they knew when the dad went and picked him up and all that stuff. But yeah, I think it's some. And I wonder too, is it possible that Bryan could have called up his parents and said, "Look, I'm in trouble. They're gonna try to frame me for this case. I didn't do it, and I'll tell you why when we get home. But I'm in trouble and I need your help." Isn't that
that's possible?
Something that might happen in these kind of cases? Or
I mean, it's possible, but my first question is, like, why do they think you did it? Like, what is?
But a parent might not be quick to ask that, because, like the doctor was saying, true. Parent doesn't want to know. Parent wants to just somehow convince themselves that their child is innocent.
Well, yeah, yes, but they're gonna. I mean, if my child came up to me and said, "Hey, they're accusing me of doing something," I'm like, "Why are they accusing you? Like, what's going on? I need to know the information so that I can better be prepared to help you."
So, but this is the difference, Daniel. Their parents aren't like you or I. So I think that there's a genetic component to this, but there's also an environmental component. And so I feel like maybe if his parents would have been more like, you, or the way that you would have reacted in certain situations, maybe there would have been a different outcome. So I feel like they didn't have that interpersonal relationship that maybe you have with your kids or I have with mine or whoever, people that are watching. Mm-hmm. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, I get it. I just feel like these folks, well, especially his mom, is a professional. She worked in with the school district. I think she was like a substitute teacher, but worked with specifically children that have special needs. And so, I get it. Yeah, they might want to be like, okay, yeah, we're going to believe you. And I understand the believing aspect of it. But like there's some questions like, well, I would probably ask, like, well, obviously it wasn't you. Just tell them where you were. Where were you? Those type of things, I think, are the questions that you would probably maybe see, not necessarily allowing him to park inside of the garage to clean his car repeatedly. And they're allowing it to happen. It's
You
not
also
like
have to
they
remember he could possibly be for like a homicide, 4 people that he killed. So how much at that point, if they really think that their kid was capable of doing that, would they be like a little bit frightened? Maybe like, let's not really hold him accountable in that way. Like, at least not right now. Because what if he flips on us or whatever? I mean, could they have been thinking that? My thing is, I don't know how close they were, Daniel. Let me tell you why. From what we were told, he didn't even look at them when he went into that courtroom.
I'm gonna have somebody on the channel. I'm aiming for tomorrow night. This person was in the courtroom. They told me that they believe that he did look at his parents and smile at him. That it's being reported that was towards Ann Taylor, but his parents were behind Ann Taylor, like in the same. Like,
so would you smile at your parents though? Wouldn't you cry? Like, even if that is true and he turned around and like smiled at his parents, is that appropriate?
I want to respond to this too. If you guys, so
go ahead.
Please.
What Dr. Vona was saying, I think we have to understand, because of this guy's brain, which is abnormal, he's a psychopath. I think everybody agrees on this. It would have been difficult for anybody to have a normal relationship with him. So I don't think it's if the family didn't have a normal relationship with him, I don't think that necessarily reflects on the family. It's a reflection of Bryan Kohberger himself.
Yes.
And you even go look to his comments in high school when he's describing looking at his own family member as though they are 2-dimensional cutouts in a video game. He can't see them as real people, which is exactly how it is when you're a psychopath, because you are incapable of putting yourself in the shoes of other people. And that's why you don't have this kind of empathy, right? And so I just think it would have been, and anything he does in court, it's so difficult to read into because it's performative. He's always trying to gain a reaction, whether it's from the media or from something else. It's his own game plan. And I don't think his family has much role in what that game plan is. So I don't know if you guys agree with that.
Yeah. Also, I mean, I definitely understand what you're saying, and I get it. Here's something that she did say, and I want to get your opinion on what kind of relationship they would have based on what she's saying. And obviously social media is different than what people probably live in real life, right? So this goes on to say, me too, dear lady, me too. I just could be me, though. Been kind of blue since my son moved from Pennsylvania to Washington to study in a PhD program. I miss him terribly, and I think everything is just a little less colorful without seeing him all the time. But he will come home for nearly a month at Christmas time, yay. If she was being authentic and this is how she felt, what does that tell you, Dr. Vona, about her relationship with her son?
Like we were just saying, it's one thing how she feels about him. It's another thing how he would feel back. So I think she's being a mom here, right? Like if my kid was gone, I'd miss them too. So like you were just saying before, like this isn't necessarily a reflection of her. Do you know what I mean? So I think like she can miss him and feel all this stuff. And then, I mean, think about kids that do love their parents at this age. Like sometimes they just get away anyway. So I don't know that we could really say here. I wouldn't doubt if the mom feels that they're close.
I think at one of the hearings in Pennsylvania, it was reported that he mouthed the words, "I love you" towards his parents.
So, but how do we know how much of that is manipulation? And I'm not saying that it is. I'm just saying how much of that could be manipulation and how much of it, it might not be too, but it could be.
Yeah. Yeah, very much so. I mean, like I said, Howard Bloom said that his father, when talking with Howard Bloom sources, used the term master of disguise. One of the things that he was able to do is fool Catherine Ramsland. She's come out and said that she had no clue that he was like this, that she gave him the benefit of that, like she does all of her other students. She can't go into a classroom thinking that that somebody could be inspired to commit crimes based on what she's saying, which I agree. But he was able to manipulate her, and he had her for 4 classes, 4 different semesters.
And Dr. Vona would know more about this, but the primary work on psychopathy, and I think it was written all the way back in like 1947, but it's called The Mask of Sanity. The Mask of Sanity. And that's the thing is underneath is someone that's basically insane, or at least doesn't have a normal brain, but is able to wear these masks of sanity all the time. And it's just what mask they choose to put on. But if you're around them enough, like a father would be, at some point, you're closely observing and you're realizing that it's all a mask, one mask or another that he's putting on.
So I would add to that being in the situation of Dr. Ramsland, in that same situation, I had a lot of people ask me on my channel if it was normal for people to take you 4 times, and it is. So let me just put that out there. That is normal. Students take me 4 times all the time. So if I teach 5 classes, they'll take me 5 times. So it's more about just you found somebody that you could relate to, that you could learn from, and you're like, why would I change that if I could continue to take this person and learn something else. With that being said, there is a FERPA law, which she was talking about before, and that's just where we can't give out too much information. So that was another thing people were asking. I think that it's important to note that a big portion of our population are psychopaths, you guys, and they don't kill people. So we have to add that in there too, right? So there could be a ton of students that are psychopaths that are just going to be successful people someday. Like that'll never go on to harm anybody else. So to think that Dr. Ramsland could just be like, oh, you're going to do something, it would just be, I mean, that would just be putting like that superhero hat on her to think that she is a god that could just be like, this is the one. So I don't give her any slack for not identifying. She did say that when she, in hindsight, when she looks back and like reads some of his things, but if without that, he would have just been a really good student and maybe somebody that was going to be like a trailblazer in the field, which he probably could have been.
Right. Now, but given that said, and you said that, you know, you've had people take your classes multiple times. Bryan Kohberger wouldn't, if he is the sociopath, he's not taking her class for those reasons. Why is he taking her class if he's a psychopath?
Because if he ever had in his head that he might do this at some point, who then a better person to keep in touch with but Dr. Ramsland? She'll write a book with you or about you, right? That keeps him in the spotlight. I don't think that it's a coincidence that we found out really nothing new during that hearing yesterday. I think that the prosecution really just gave him all the power. So now he just has the story. And even when he does tell the story, you guys, I don't know that it's going to be the true one. So that's another thing. Like, how do we even know when he does tell Dr. Ramsland or somebody the story? I do think that he wants to be the one that people study now, almost like he's the next generation. Like, enough with Dennis Rader, study me now. So I am not going to be surprised when Dr. Ramsland writes a book with him. And that's just my opinion. Didn't she say she was going to write him in a chapter anyway? So, you know what I mean?
She did say that in the book, Serial Killer Apprentice, which is an odd title for a book, that she was going to have a chapter on Bryan Kohberger. And in this podcast, she mentioned that this is the first time she actually brought it up, that she's like, people ask me how I didn't see him. And, you know, these people are able to hide in plain sight sometimes. And that told me all I needed to know right away, that she probably thought that he had committed the crime, just couldn't speak on it. And it sounds like that's probably the inkling that she had, that she gave him the benefit of the doubt up until the alibi. Once he was unable to provide one, and she knows what an alibi is, and she knows that he knows what an alibi is. And when he was unable to provide one to get out of jail or to say where he was at, that told her everything that she needed to know. And so, but to me, I think that he wanted to learn from her. And I think he was just using it as a tool for his arsenal so that way he wouldn't get caught. But you bring up an excellent point. Like, he's got the control and stuff. Do you think that he would have eventually, let's say he never got caught, would he have ever eventually confessed to tell his story?
Oh, I always believe that. So if he didn't get caught, no, he would just, in my opinion, if he does fit the serial killer, I think that he would just reoffend, right, until he did get caught. However, when people do get caught that are in this situation, they often like to correct the record. So if somebody said something and they're like, that's not how it happened, like at some point when their appeals are up, you know, and this is the thing, he doesn't have any appeals now. So now he's completely free to start that chapter with her so that she could get right to letting them buy the book with him in it. Like, I feel like he got the identity that he didn't have.
Yeah. Yeah, no, you're right. You're always right on these things, Dr. Vona.
Oh, thank you. I feel
that's why you're the expert. That's why you're the expert.
I appreciate it.
Yes. What about this, guys? A lot of people are pointing out that he's wearing this shirt in this selfie. Is it the same shirt?
Oh, I
know.
said that as soon as I saw it. Yes, it is. I think it is.
You think it's the same shirt?
Yep.
What about you, Kevin? Do you think it's the same shirt?
It looks like it, but it's also a generic white shirt, so it's kind of hard to tell. I mean, he might have a bunch of these.
The biggest clue for me that it might be the same one is look at that where his sleeve ends up at. It's pretty low on his arm, and when he went and raised his arm yesterday, it was pretty low. But Kevin's right; it's pretty generic. It could be, but
it could be generic. But I would think that again, if you're somebody in this situation, I wouldn't be surprised if he wore the shirt on purpose.
I was going to say,
there was no emotion, Daniel. There was no emotion. You know, when you call something and they're like, say yes, and you have to say yes or no, like, I feel like that's what he was doing. Like, he was like, yes. Like, there was nothing. It was like stone cold.
Well, if it is the same shirt, one thing it tells us is that that's not the shirt he was wearing when he committed the murders, because I think he would have got rid of all that clothing.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
Oh, yeah. And see, that was another thing that I think that the prosecution should have forced him to respond with, to talk about. Right. Like, hey, where did you do with the clothing? One of the things that we did learn is apparently Dylan saw the intruder, Bryan Kohberger, with a container as he was walking out.
Oh, yeah.
Now he sat down in Xana's room, right? There was an impression, according to the Dateline, on a chair. Is it possible that after he took the lives of Ethan and Xana, that he sat in there and changed out of his clothing? And that's the reason why he couldn't attack Dylan, is because he had already changed.
Yes, absolutely. I've thought that before, because even with the step, like, so at one point I'm like, maybe he didn't see her because of that step there. Like, I know me, I wouldn't want to add any more evidence. So if I knew that there was a step there when I came in, whether I just didn't realize it was there or I saw, if I'm looking down to look at it, I don't even know that he saw her. But if he did see her, I was like, maybe he would have already had been changed, or at least cleaned the knife or something to where, or maybe he thought she called the cops. Who knows? Look at his eyebrows, you guys.
I was just about to say that. I was like, somebody cleaned up his eyebrows, because
that is gone.
Yeah. What do you think about this, Dr. Vona? I know a lot of people look at the defense team, and you as well, Kevin. I want to ask you both this question. A lot of people look at the defense team and say Ann Taylor was just doing her job. She's just doing her job. She's just trying to defend him to the best of her ability. But just 4 or 5 days ago, she was trying to throw 4 other people under the bus and try to ruin their lives by naming them as suspects in an open court. What does that mean? How does that make you feel about her tactics? Let's start off with you, Kevin, first.
So, you know, when I was on Court TV a couple months ago, there was a brief section where I was only on with one lawyer and Vinny, and the other guests hadn't showed up yet. So I figured I'd take advantage of the time to bring up something that I asked both Vinny, who used to be a lawyer, and the other lawyer I was on. I said, so when I was a kid, I used to read the books of Alan Dershowitz. And at the time, he was famous for defending some of the country's most heinous murderers or criminals. And this is before he went on to help defend OJ. But I liked his books. And I'm not saying I was necessarily even considering becoming a lawyer, but I bought into his argument that in order to protect all of our rights, it's very important to defend the rights of the worst criminals among us. And so that made sense to me. But when I look at it, and so he argued passionately for the role of the defense lawyer. But my experience through the Karen Reed case, in which they were accusing and destroying the lives of innocent people just to try to establish some kind of plausible third-party culprit. I didn't say that our justice system shouldn't be allowed to do that. But what I concluded was that I personally felt differently about it. I could not be a defense lawyer. And I threw that back on them. I said, how do you guys feel about this? You guys used to be lawyers. Could you, as a defense lawyer, go in there and just, in order to save your client, try to throw the light on some person that you knew as the lawyer was innocent? And Joe Krowski he always has an entertaining answer. He said, look, he goes, I would do anything to get my client off within ethical boundaries. He goes, and to me, third-party culprit is always fine. He goes, I would even propose my mother as a third-party culprit if I had to do it to get my client off. He said, where I wouldn't do it, where I differed from the Karen Reed lawyers, is that I would keep that third-party culprit effort, those arguments, within the 4 walls of the courtroom instead of going out and doing a public media campaign. But of course, in a high-profile case like this, keeping it within the four walls of the courtroom doesn't mean much. It's still going to go out all over the world. So, and then right after that, after the commercial break, Joe had to apologize because his mom texted him saying she was very upset with him for saying that. But you know, so myself, I was like, I don't know whether it's the right thing or the wrong thing to do for defense lawyers to do that. I just know I personally couldn't do it.
So do you remember when I talked about how like some of my students could be antisocial personality and be very successful? It is not uncommon for some lawyers to have like psychopathy or even narcissism. And I don't mean even like completely disordered to where it interferes with their life in a negative way.
Right.
So this would just be traits. Because again, if we're disordered, you guys, it's interfering in our life in a negative way. So, or at least two areas of daily functioning. In this sense, it would be helping them. So they found a way to use it in a different way. I couldn't defend them either, but I think that that's also why I'm a teacher and not a lawyer. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So
What she's saying is a lack of empathy can be an advantage. Sorry to interrupt you just real briefly. A lack of empathy is actually an advantage in certain situations. If you want to be a defense lawyer, if you want to be a surgeon.
Sure. Oh, sure.
CEO.
But it wouldn't even be, it's not even a lack of empathy in certain instances. It would be more of being able to rationalize, like you were saying Alan Dershowitz did, like in order to defend this person, we have to, you know, defend the worst or throw my mother under the bus, like the other lawyer said. But I think think about doing that, right? That sounds like crazy to think that you would do that. But my lawyer, like all the lawyers that I know would do the same thing. But I don't think they're bad people. So I think that I'm just not a lawyer, and that's why. Just like I'm not a cop for a reason. So I think that it just takes a certain person. I'm not a nurse for a reason. I'd cry and I wouldn't make it out of there.
Yeah, yeah. To me, I'm on the same boat there. I couldn't throw somebody that I knew was innocent under the bus and ruin their life, especially if it's a high-profile crime where you have a lot of controversy going on and people are just blaming everybody. And with the Bryan Kohberger case, anybody and everybody who's ever come out on camera that lived in Moscow, Idaho, has been blamed as a killer. Anybody and everybody, the neighbors, friends, family members of the victims, anybody and everybody that has come out has at one point been blamed as a killer. It is insane. And so to that extent, for I guess for Ann Taylor to go through with it, with at least keeping it sealed, I thought she was keeping it sealed because they knew that it was a losing argument. But I guess also so that people don't go and harass these people and go after them. I know you're going to...
Wait, real quick, Daniel. Could it be that she just knows the law and knows that it would have never flown? Like almost like she had to do everything she could in her eyes, and she did win, right? If you think about it, she got the win here. She got her client off of death row, so like that would be a win in her. So I feel like she was just doing, and I feel like she probably knew that the judge was never going to go for that.
Right. Man,
So
he looks weird.
Cool. I know
He does. He's what you would think
he's giving me like
serial killer would look. Yeah. Like if you were casting an actor to play a serial psychopath killer, that's what he would look like.
And he'd be happy to hear that. He'd be happy to hear that.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah,
because we would be validating the identity that he's feeling here.
Yeah. And so, just kind of looking at all this. And before you go, Kevin, I know you're going to take off here soon. You said you had a couple of pages of a book you wanted to read for us real quick.
Oh, yeah, sure. So this was just John Douglas's book, Inside the Mind of BTK, the true story behind the 30-year hunt for the notorious Wichita killer. So interestingly, as we all know, a lot of times the police, or generally, they withhold a lot of evidence about a case. And what he's saying is other than withholding some of this evidence in the first few hours or days, the police should consider revealing more of this. Let me go to his words. So he says, I strongly believe that Rader's wife and children, his colleagues at work, and his friends at Christ Lutheran Church, and other fathers in the Boy Scout troop could have recognized the behavioral characteristics of Dennis Rader had we released this information sooner in a systematic, controlled way. He says releasing this sort of information would have had a profound effect on Rader and any other suspect that law enforcement would have been attempting to identify in an ongoing investigation. Turning up the heat in this way would have created a tremendous amount of stress, causing Rader to become even more nervous and preoccupied with the case. Once that happened, he'd begin exhibiting behavior that those around him would probably have never witnessed before. So this is at the end of his book, and he gives some specific examples. For example, he says, he says, all right, he might have begun either growing facial hair. So this is interesting too. I'm curious if Bryan did any of this himself. Maybe he didn't have time, but he said
did.
BTK had these reports come out. He might have begun either growing facial hair or shaving it off, losing weight or putting it on, drinking more than usual, becoming more prone to arguments, or experiencing difficulty falling asleep, and then waking up in the middle of the night and listening to late night news. Perhaps he would have been looking for a legitimate reason to leave town for short periods, or his behavior might have morphed from appearing incredibly rigid and controlled to seemingly sloppy and careless. So Bryan lived by himself, so maybe it was a little harder to get someone to notice that stuff. But he says, more than anything else, what the BTK case did was reinforce my belief, meaning John's, that the authorities need to supply information to the general public the moment they've exhausted all logical leads. More often than not, this can occur within a few days or sometimes within a few hours of launching an investigation. The key here, he says, however, isn't to release every bit of information, merely to release certain telling, helpful bits. The rest should be held back, lest the authorities be inundated with false confessions from people looking for some sort of perverted notoriety. So I'll stop there. But this is from John Douglas's book on the BT. This is John Douglas, who also wrote Mindhunters, and all that. So one of the original FBI profilers. So I don't know if you guys want to react to any of that. I know both of you guys studying true crime. So what he's saying is more information needs to be released to the public. And I don't know if that would have helped here. It seems like the police had a good handle on this investigation from early on, but
I'll take Bryan Kohberger case out of it, and we'll look at the Delphi case. I think had they showed the entire video, the 43 seconds, they showed more of Richard Allen on that bridge. I think a lot of people would have figured out that the person on the bridge was a lot smaller, a lot shorter. They probably would have moved off from Ron Logan a lot earlier. In this case, what could they have shown more? I think the problem with this case was because there was a lack of evidence. There was a knife sheath and the DNA left out there. There's no real reason to put that out there, because that's not gonna, nobody's gonna come in like, hey, my buddy said he's missing his knife sheath. You know what I'm saying? That would be kind of hard for somebody else, not Bryan Kohberger, to report. The white Elantra, maybe they came out December 7th with that information. They knew about that right away, that there was a white vehicle. I think it took them a little bit of time to get all the footage in to determine the year, make, and model. And even at that, it's my belief that they got it wrong. They put 2011 and 13, and obviously it was a 15, but they didn't put that in their BOLO. And so it wasn't until Bryan Kohberger came up as on the IGG where they kind of put two and two together. They looked him up. Oh, he has a 2015 Elantra, yada, yada, yada. And so in this case, what could they have put out there? The only thing that I would, it's kind of dangerous though, because if you put out there with the information that that, all right, the back sliding glass door was left open, all the doors were left open where the decedents were, lack of DNA and things of that nature. I mean, the only thing you can put out there is that you think it's somebody who's experienced, whether they've done this before or they're in a criminal studies.
And John Douglas is talking about when they don't really have a suspect too, but it seems like here they had a suspect pretty early on, so you wouldn't have wanted to put out much there. So, well,
I mean, the only reason they got the suspect was because of his the DNA left behind. There's nothing there outside of the sister who reported him to the FBI, which, like I said, I think he was going to get caught regardless because the sister reported him. Everything else would have.
Weren't they looking for the white Elantra though too? Or did I misunderstand that?
They were, but they were looking for a 2011 and 13, and his was a 15. And although they went and documented his, which is proof to me, so law enforcement is saying that basically the way they take that information from an expert is that they're looking for vehicles that are similar to an 11 to 13 Hyundai Elantra, not just 11 to 13 Elantras, 11 to 2013 Elantras. And so the fact that on November 25th, before Bryan Kohberger's name came up, they actually went and documented his vehicle and put that in the list of vehicles. So that kind of saved their tail, because they can say, hey, look, we were going based off of vehicles that were similar to, and we can say that because we reported his vehicle in the list of vehicles that have possible vehicles before his name came out. It'd have been differently if his name came out December 19th and they had never documented his car. That would have been a different story.
I do have to pop off. I'd like to just direct my audience to subscribe to Dr. Vona's channel. So what was the name of your channel again, Doctor?
The Mind Behind True Crime with Dr. Vona. And do the same for your channel so that people that are watching for me can go to yours.
Thank you. So my channel is Yellow Cottage Tales, and The Mind Behind the Crime with Dr. Jaime Vona is the name.
The Mind Behind True Crime with Dr. Vona. I think if you put in Dr. Vona, you'll see me if you scroll down.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate it. It's very nice to meet you. And Dan, thanks for having me as always. And I hope to see you all again sometime again.
Yes, sir. We'll do it again. You have a great day and be safe out there, my man.
So, Daniel, I think it's important to note, what were we just talking about? I just had something in my head, and then what the hell were you just talking about? I just had an ADHD. Oh my God. I had it in my head, and I was holding it the whole time. I was practicing active listening, and then.
Well, this happens to me all the time.
Yeah,
and what I normally tell people is to record what I say, because I hardly remember. No, I think what we were talking about basically was the book that he wrote, and about BTK saying that more information coming out would.
I remember what I was going to say.
In this scenario, I'm not sure if that would work, but
I remember what I was going to say. So I think that it's important to note that I think what he was reading from was when we look at serial killers, as of right now, Kohberger is a mass murderer. He's not a serial killer, although he presents as a serial killer. So anybody with forensic background, well, at least anybody that I've even looked at, including myself, believe that had he gotten away with this, he would have continued to offend if he hadn't done it before. I mean, who knows? We don't know. But so I do think he's going to fit that characteristic. But right now he's considered a mass murderer, which tells us that if he was a serial killer and he didn't get to the next crime, then the law enforcement did a pretty good job that they were able to find him. With BTK, he was going on for 30 years. So maybe they meant had they have, given more information, over the 30 years, that maybe they could have. So I don't know that this case would have necessarily fit in that particular thing, if that makes sense.
No, I get you. But I strongly suspect, based on the fact that he was trying to purchase another weapon, the way he was trying to purchase that weapon would have been easily traceable. I don't think it was to try to replace the one he had in case somebody came asking. I think it was more so for another crime. Mm-hmm. And if my research is correct and my understanding is correct, the searches for the K-bar knife were only made while he was in Pullman. Once he went to Pennsylvania, he wasn't searching it anymore. So he had other videos or other pictures and other women that he was following that were close to the victims there. I wouldn't be surprised if he was targeting another.
Yeah, I wouldn't either. What do we think about his time in jail coming up? A lot of people are asking questions about that. Is he going to be in solitary, this, that, and the other? If what I came to learn, because I did a little bit of research on this, is that he's eventually going to get to general population, that in the first 3 months, they do a bunch of intake stuff. Correct me if I'm wrong. Yeah. Where they do psych evals and all, so that they know your medications and stuff, all that stuff. And then after that, I think he will go to gen pop. I think a lot of people, and people don't get mad at me for this, but if he has a personality disorder, he might be feared in jail. Think about it. He used a knife. In jail, you don't have guns. A lot of people are in there for gun violence and stuff, in the high, or max security type prison. So in this case, I guess, who's, first of all, how do you get a roommate when you can't sleep because you don't know if they're gonna, at any moment, how do you know that he's not going to do it to you? I don't know. I just see this as a big mess, but I don't see it as, I think a lot of people are oh, wait till he gets to jail and stuff. And unfortunately, if he has a personality disorder, and the fact that he was able to do this to 4 people, I feel if anything, people and he's smart, right? So I feel like he's going to wind up doing better in jail than what we would want him to do, and that's a shame. That's just my opinion.
I saw my experience in prison and jails is very, very limited. I only transported people there. I never worked in the jail, but I was watching this one guy earlier today who was an ex-con, and he was talking about that his first 30 days or so are going to be in solitary until they get everything checked out. He was eventually in that he would eventually go to general population. He mentioned that there are no guns and that knives would be used, and he also mentioned like that the fact that it would be like that's their home, right? That's their home. They live there for X amount of time, and now if you're a person and that's your home, and those cells on that block, that's your neighborhood, that's your block. And now a serial killer who went in there just to kill somebody for the fun of it. He didn't kill somebody because he had to. It wasn't a drug deal gone wrong. It wasn't a gang violence or somebody took out somebody else and it's revenge. He took it out for the thrill, just to feel what it feels like. And so you're absolutely right. Like, who's going to want to sleep in the same room with him?
I wouldn't.
If he one day just gets that urge again.
Mm-hmm.
And
I don't know.
I mean, I wouldn't be surprised
I feel like people are making it seem like
to.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I wouldn't be like, people are like saying like, oh, he's going to be somebody's bitch and all that stuff. Like, I unfortunately don't see that happening. I see, if anything, like you were just saying, like within like, people you can make knives and stuff. So I just feel like, if anything, I just know that if I was in jail with him, I would always have my eye open when he was around, because I'd be like, this guy already did this. Like, so we know that he could do this. Like you said, it's not that somebody got revenge on someone type thing. Like, this was like premeditated. He even says, yes, it was premeditated. So he tells us that. So that's just scary to me. You'll have to send me that video. I want to watch that.
Yeah, I'll send it to you. It's insane because he talks about that. He thinks that he's probably going to get recruited. And one of the gangs that are there in Idaho is the Aryan Brotherhood. And they like smart, dangerous people. A lot of people in jail aren't the most intelligent. And so if you have somebody with an above average IQ and somebody that lacks emotion, a killer like him, I mean, they can do a lot for you. And, I wouldn't be surprised if that's the route he ends up going. I mean, if he ends up in general population, and this is one thing the ex-con also mentioned too. He said that a dangerous person, like, it depends on their situation. If you have a guy who's a trained killer, a UFC fighter, whatever the case may be, but he only got 6 months left on his sentence, he's not going to be that dangerous compared to a guy that's on a life deal. Nothing to lose. He's got nothing to lose. And so that's going to make him very dangerous and somebody that they said that would recruit. Now, I don't know. I don't know if, like, those people in Idaho have friends and family members that maybe are somehow, 12 degrees of separation, right? Everybody knows somebody. Maybe I don't know, maybe they felt a certain way of what he did, but the prison system isn't designed for prison justice. You know what I'm saying? I know that those things happen, but the guards and the warden, they're there to try to make everybody, so they don't want to lose anybody, at the end of the day. Not like that. The firing squad, they're probably happy to do that, but not in that manner, because it looks down upon their facility. They can lose funding, they can lose money. There's so much more. So Bryan Kohberger means more to them alive financially and everything else than him dead in the prison system. And that's just the sad truth about it.
Absolutely. And I got a lot of my information from, like, you guys have to remember, I live in inner city Philadelphia. A lot of my friends and like neighbors and stuff did a lot of jail time. So they were the ones that said the thing about the knife. And I was like, wow, I never thought about that. They're like, you could be a big guy with a gun, but like someone that actually took a knife, and like, they were like, that's just crazy. And I'm like, I didn't even think of it that way. But they like gave me they schooled me, and I was like, oh, this is good research. But they think that the other thing they said that I did not like was that, unfortunately, they said that they probably won't see him as like a child killer type thing, because even though they were kids to us, like my kid's 22, she's still a kid to me, but that they're going to see them as, oh, he took out 3 women and a guy, like whatever. And I was like, that's like terrible. But then I thought about it and I'm like, he could be in there with other like-minded people. So would that really be, you know, like to me, that's like, oh my God, you did what? But if there's another killer in there that's also done the same thing, I didn't think of that. So I'm like, I don't know that he's going to have as hard a time as I thought he would.
I'll be honest, people in prison aren't there for their morale. So I don't think they're going to go in there and be like,
exactly.
You know,
but people will be like, oh, we'll find out. Yeah, they'll be like, somebody's a dad in there. And I'm like, I don't know.
Well, I get that. I mean, there might be, I think he probably falls in line maybe more with somebody trying to make a name for themselves. I think that's probably what he'd be more in danger of, is somebody trying to make a name for themselves versus something else outside of that. But the ex-con said it. He said, those people are behind bars because they did stuff just as bad, you know, that are there. So they don't care. They don't care what they're in there for.
I wasn't thinking that until they said that to me too. And I'm like, oh yeah, I guess so. Like they have their own things that they're there for. They're like, that's the last thing they're worried about is what, like, they know what you did, but like, and they want to know, like, was this a premeditated thing or did you just get like, you know, street justice for your boy that got killed? Like they said, like, that makes a difference. Yeah. And I'm like, yeah, I guess it would.
I guess it does too, but it's like, what can you do for me? I mean, if he goes in there and he starts, I don't know, he doesn't seem like a very friendly person. He doesn't have very many friends. So
no, and that would make me think that he could use that to like scare people away from messing with him type thing, like almost giving them like that stare type thing. That would creep me out. Then again, I'm also not I'm not in a high prison or whatever. I didn't do some high crime. So
and things do happen. Yeah, and things do happen. I think the officer that was arrested, charged, and was found guilty of George Floyd, he got stabbed in prison. So those things do happen. Those things happen. And I wouldn't be surprised if, like I said, if what Bryan Kohberger probably needs to worry about the most is somebody trying to make a name for themselves, to use his big name and say, oh, I'm the guy that took that MFer down. You know what I mean?
1,000%. Or exploit them in some way.
Yeah. We got
like if they think that people are going to like send them money from like online and stuff, like they might be able to use that to be like, you know, to exploit them in some way. I don't know.
Yeah.
Do you think people are going to start writing them love letters?
They probably already are. I think there was one lady. There was one lady. I think she was like in Kentucky or Kansas, one of the K states, and was like, "Oh my God, ever since I met him or saw him on TV, I knew he was the one." Like a bunch of crazy nonsense. I'm gonna get through some super chats real quick. Donna comes in with $1.99. Thank you. J Mofo $5. Thank you for the mods. Thank you, mods. You guys are awesome. We have TCF coming in with ISK 1500. I was in a DV situation for 7 years. He was a master manipulator. His mom always babbled to him and turned a blind eye even after breaking her hand. She blamed herself. BK's mom was similar, maybe. What do you think? Do you think that if that would make sense for Bryan Kohberger's, like if he had a mom that was like that was kind of giving into everything?
I don't know. I think I need to know more. I feel like I know very little about his parents. Like I wish I knew more about their interaction. So I really don't know that I would comment on that because I don't think I know enough information. I think that would be total speculation on my part.
Yeah.
I don't think we really know enough.
Yeah.
I'm sure his parents love him just like anybody would love their son, right? So I think, again, just like, you know, the guest was also saying, this is like more of a reflection of him. I mean, I'm sure the parents played some, I don't know. We'll have to see.
Yeah. Robert comes in with $5. Thank you, Robert. Shelly comes in with $7.99. It blows my mind he wasn't ordered to do elocution within the plea deal. Mine too. I can't understand why he wasn't forced to talk about what he did, how he did it, those type of things. Leslie and Billy come in with $5. Thank you. I got this one already. And Peyton, $5. 1, how were they already on to them before the trash pool? 2, did they get the black mask and knife receipts? Thank you, DT. They do have the knife receipts. They do have the black mask receipts. How were they already on to them before the trash pool? So the reason they were on to Bryan Kohberger is because of the DNA left on the knife sheath. They were able to run that through an IgG, and the IgG through the FBI were able to come up with a possible suspect of Bryan Kohberger. And so I believe that happened December 19th. Now, when that came back, but they were already watching him. They were already looking at him. They've been watching him for a couple of days. Now, why or how would they be watching him if he didn't come back on the IGG yet? Maybe because his sister called.
I was going to say, could it be the sister? I don't know. Did that information get back to them? Possibly. Didn't they say too that the one of the security guards at Washington State like went around and did like an inventory of all the cars, and he came up with a list of people. So I think there were a lot of people that wanted to figure this out. So I think like they did work together, well, but after seeing the evidence, not well enough, because I don't think the evidence was as like I thought we were going to hear all this stuff.
I was hoping to. I know that some people say that this is just the bare minimum. It's not. This was not a probable cause burden. This was supposed to be a burden beyond reasonable doubt. What he was saying, it was supposed to be the state's case. Now, obviously, it's not closing arguments. It's not opening arguments. It's not designed to persuade or sway a jury in one way or another. This was just solely to give the judge the facts so that he can make his determination if the plea is granted or not. And so you don't have to go with the theatrics. You don't have to be like with the flash and the pounding of the tables or any of those things, which I understand. But I felt like it was weak. I still feel like it was weak. It was a weak presentation. He talked about what answers they didn't have. You know what I mean? And
yeah, that was ridiculous.
Yeah, I didn't like that. I didn't like the fact that he was talking about the answers they didn't have, and they could easily have them. They could easily have these answers. And
I don't like that he said that they knew it wasn't a sexually motivated crime. I'm like, just because there wasn't an essay doesn't mean that it, you know what I mean? Like, I just felt like he was putting too much like conjecture on it that we didn't really know.
Yeah, he said that that there wasn't any sign of sexual motivation for this crime because of.
Yeah, he should have just said there was no essay.
Yeah, exactly. So many questions, and I think that those questions should have been answered, even if it was just to them, and it wasn't an open court. Even if it was to the judge, the prosecutor, and the prosecutor can, tell the families, and the families can accept the plea. But to me, I think that the biggest part is the fact that the judge had mentioned when they talked about cameras in the courtroom, he said, "We want cameras in the courtroom so that the public and the media and everybody else can accept the verdict." He wants them to be like, all right, we've seen the evidence and we understand why. Doing it this way, there's a lot of people that are still questioning things. And
I don't think they gave enough. Like I said with Jennifer Cobbin-Davron here, right? Like I could say that I did it. Like I don't feel like he was just like, okay, yes, it was me. Yes, it was me. It was so lackluster.
If he would have given, for instance, the location of the knife, even if it was just that there's only one person that would know where it's at. You know what I mean? There would be no more doubt. And if anybody was still trying to hang on to this theory of conspiracy after that, then you just know where their motivations are. You know what I'm saying? And so
yeah, they almost added to it by doing this.
Now I know that they're going to lift the gag order, so I'm not sure how much of the stuff is going to be released. We're working on it. We're going to try to get the traffic stop and some other things that haven't been released in the Bryan Kohberger case. But yeah, I also think that there's a good chance. I don't know. I actually don't know the answer to it, so I'll just keep it to myself. Artworks comes in with $4.99 saying Charles Manson was engaged to a 26-year-old good-looking girl. BK will probably have several marriage proposals. Yeah. I wouldn't be surprised.
He could even have kids behind bar, can he?
I think you'd have to get married to get conjugal visits or whatever they're called.
Yeah, but he could do that, right? Like, I just hate this whole thing for this family. I don't know.
But you know what? I think he hates women.
Oh yeah.
I mean,
me too.
So like I know a lot of people say he's an incel, but I don't think he's an incel. I think he's voluntarily.
Yeah, I did a whole video on that. I said he's a voluntary incel. I totally agree with you.
I think
because
that
he had girls propose to him, right? Not propose like marriage, but like gave us his phone number and stuff. So he was able to get girls' phone numbers. He might not have been able to seal the deal though. Maybe afterwards, I don't know. Like didn't they say like on Dateline that he would call and hang up and call and like that would be a little bit
Howard
weird.
Bloom said that. Howard Bloom said that some of the girls that gave their number to Bryan Kohberger would get phone calls and they would hang up. One girl said that he did text her, so he did
And I didn't
reach
think
out
there
at
was
least
anything
one
wrong
time.
with that. Yeah, I didn't think there was anything wrong with that text either.
Right. And so, the girl that he did get some attention from was his Asian descent and very different from like the girls from what it appeared to be that was on his phone that he was looking at and saving. And so,
I agree.
maybe he was unable to attain what he desired. I mean, there was other things that he could get, other women that he could get, but it wasn't a desirable person to him. And
I think that's partially why he took that out on Ethan too, right? Because like it was like Ethan was everything that he wasn't.
That's possible. That is possible. KDP comes in. Thank you, Daniel and Dr. Vona and the mods. Thank you. You guys are awesome. We appreciate all you guys. Jordan comes in. Do you think he was scared being pulled over after? Like on the August one where he was stalking and then he gets pulled over and doesn't want to give his phone number. I think he was
they mean
pissed.
with his dad.
Oh, okay, with his dad.
Because they said afterwards. That would be the one after. He didn't look like he was anxious.
I think he was okay after the first one. I think after the first few minutes or a few seconds of talking with the officer, I think he could tell that this wasn't what it could have been. I mean, if it was a felony stop, right? Let me explain what that is. So if you have somebody that you're stopping that you believe is a quadruple homicide murderer and they are dangerous, you're going to approach the vehicle in a certain way. You're not going to be all relaxed and leaning into the car like the officers were. And so he probably picked up on that and was like, all right, this isn't that. You know what I mean? Stephanie comes in $5. DT, just wanted to show my appreciation. Love Dr. Vona. I think she is a great addition to your show. Happy 4th, everyone. Thank you. We have Jen gifting 1 Drunk Turkey Show membership. Thank you. Natalie James. Thank you so much. Always a huge fan and a supporter of the show. Thank you, Natalie. Comes in with the Idaho statement is reporting that there will be a private meeting for the families after the sentencing to review all the details and evidence. I hope so. And
they deserve
whatever
it.
comes out. Whatever comes out of that, be sure that, if it gets to me, I'll make sure that you guys know what it is. I don't think anybody else is pulling up. Let me pull it back up. I don't think anybody else has access to this. This is Michael Kohberger's flight tickets. There's more to this too. I can't share what else is on here because I can't. But the date in which they purchased this, those type of things, I know exactly when it was. It was the day before. He bought this December 10th. Flew out December 11th. Got stuck in Seattle because of the weather in Pullman and had to fly out the next evening. And the crazy thing is, look at what time he flew out of Seattle, 8:30 p.m. So he spent the entire day and night. He stayed at the airport. He didn't get a hotel. He didn't leave the airport. He stayed there he arrived there at 7:58 p.m. and didn't leave until 8:30 the next day. So he stayed at the airport in Seattle for over 24 hours.
That's crazy.
Yeah, that sure is. Yeah, he was supposed to. Oops, wrong one. He was supposed to go to Pullman, but this one got canceled.
Wow. His dad definitely probably suspected something. I don't know that I think that Bryan said anything. I think he would be smarter than to say anything to like over the phone. But I'm sure he let them know that that something was going on. But I don't know that he was like, guess what I did?
No, I get that. But if his dad bought this ticket, which I know he did on the 10th, flew out the 11th, landed on the 12th in the middle of the night because it was 9:34 in Spokane. How far is Spokane from Moscow? At least an hour or two. Weather. They're not getting home till 11, and then they're They're taking off the very next morning.
Oh yeah, I see what you're saying. So like his dad didn't stay and like spend any time there.
No. I mean, it was he got there, and as soon as he got there, he rested up, and they drove their asses out of there.
Well, good thing you didn't stay long enough to get a shower because the shower
Didn't have a shower curtain. Maybe that's why he took it off. I don't know. Maybe his dad liked it. There
That's
you go.
crazy.
I mean, you guys tell me who else has which flight number, location, when he got stuck, how he got stuck. You heard it here first, guys.
Yes, you
Guarantee
did.
you that. Guarantee you that. And I have more than this. I just can't show it yet. Like, there's some things I just can't show. I'll explain to you, Dr. Vona, after the show. Peyton comes in with $2, says, how'd Ellie find the receipts for the knife and the mask? Thank you. Well, I told you guys a long time ago. I had said this so many times that it was a gift card that he had purchased it from. How did they find it? My understanding, it was the Amazon Fire Stick is how they found the K-bar knife purchase was through the Amazon Fire Stick. That's my understanding. I'm not in the investigation. I've not seen that personally myself, but that's my understanding.
It's crazy.
And he left it behind too. He left it at his house, at his apartment in Washington.
What about Bill crying?
What
Did you
about
think that
what?
was fake? When Bill Thompson when he was
Oh
saying the name?
yeah.
That was so ridiculous.
That did not feel authentic to me.
No, not at all. When I rewatched it, I was like, I thought he like just choked. Like I thought he just had a cough. I didn't realize that like the first time I watched it that was him like choking up. I was like, oh wait a minute, that was like so bad.
Yeah, especially like probably having the discussions that he had with some of the victims' family members. Now, granted, I mean, he's probably gotten close to some of these other family members as well. The Chapins, the Kernodles, the Mogans, along with the Gonsalves family. And so I guess it's possible that he may have gotten choked up and it'd be authentic. It didn't sound like it to me. It didn't feel that way.
Mm-mm.
Maybe I was just so damn pissed off that he could have got so many more answers for the families and for everybody, and he folded. He folded.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, and here's how fast he folded. So I know for a fact that they didn't offer a plea deal. They didn't offer Bryan Kohberger a plea deal because the families didn't want to offer him one. And then Bryan Kohberger and his team come Friday afternoon, and say, hey, once everything that they've tried to get failed, the IgG, they wanted the DNA thrown out, failed. They wanted third-party persons, failed. They wanted a continuance, failed. Everything that they had been doing, the advanced timing records on all those 30 discovery things that they wanted, failed. All of it was nothing, and it was just going down the tubes. All the evidence was going to be allowed in. Everything was bad. So they call on Friday night, say, hey, we want to plea, and they send a letter to the families, from what I understand. Simple letter, not even a phone call. And then by Sunday, they're told that they're accepting the plea. So over the weekend, outside of business hours. So he folded. I mean, he saw his opportunity and he took the low hanging fruit, and that's what it was. He could have gotten so much more out of this.
He's like, I could still retire and go on vacation before summer's over.
Pretty much.
That's what I felt like. Like I felt like it was just not important.
I mean,
Although I know that's wrong, you guys. That's it. I'm sure it was important. That's what it felt like while watching it.
Yeah. And to me, I just felt like, though, like the guy is basically saying, all right, I did it. I'm going to cop to it. I'm sure that inside they probably thought that they were going to be forced to answer some questions. They were probably shocked that they didn't have to do it either.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, I just, that's the part that gets me. I know a lot of people that have been in my comment section here recently saying, oh, some of the families wanted this. It's not the fact that he got 4 life sentences and he's never going to see the light of day. That's fine. What pisses me off about the whole situation is the fact that he goes up there and has the audacity to say that we have questions we don't have answers for. We have an opportunity to get those questions answered, and yet we're just going to go ahead and just take this for what it is, close it because it's a black eye on the community, and nobody wants to see it. Just like the house was a black eye. They didn't want the house out there. They thought it was a black eye for the community, and they tore it down before the dang thing, and against the wishes of the family members there too.
Unbelievable. That was unbelievable too.
So I understand the frustration from the family members on how they felt from the beginning. I mean, I can go further. There was a situation where they were telling the Gonzalez family were telling the prosecution that there was footage that was out there and available, but it was going to get recorded over if they don't get it, because it only had a 30 or 45-day retention period, and they got it like 2 days before it was recorded over, or the day before it was recorded over. It's insane. Yeah, I mean, that's what they've had to deal with throughout this entire time. I'll be honest, I think Judge Hippler, I'll be honest, I don't think it was appropriate for what he said at the beginning of the hearing yesterday.
I don't either.
Or the other day. I don't think that was appropriate. I think he's been fair for the most part. But I also think that if it wasn't for him, that we definitely wouldn't be here today. I don't think we would. I don't think Bryan Kohberger would be pleading out to anything. I think we'd still be in probably a year or two out from court if this was still in Moscow County or in Latah County. And so
I agree. And I do agree that this might have been the best thing in the end, but there was like a way to do this. They didn't get anything for it, and they didn't give the family enough time to like go to therapy and talk about it, and like talk about how meet with them to talk about how could this benefit you, like do the pros and cons. Like the fact that it was just done on like a quick email. I don't know. I felt like it was just it lacked like emotion. Yeah.
Jenna Bella comes in saying, I think being away from home gave him the freedom of giving into the demons that plagued him. He had one to occupy this time. Well, I agree to a certain extent. I think the fact that he was away from home for the first time and these murders occur aren't a coincidence. But he also purchased the knife and a bunch of his kill kit before he ever left. And so he was giving into those demons before he left. And he was getting into those demons at the highest point of his life. Just graduated with a master's degree, was heading out across country, was recommended to the PhD program, one of only 2 students from Professor Bolger to ever be recommended, was considered brilliant by his professors. It's not like he was going through the problems he was having at WSU and then he bought the K-bar knife. So to me, I think it's more than just what was happening out there. It's something internal with this guy. And,
so what Jenna Bell is saying, though, I think is even though he did all of those things while he was still at home, it wasn't until he got out there and he didn't, like, maybe at home it stopped him, maybe being at home with his family or whatever, like maybe that stopped him from using the stuff. But I do think that he had it in his head to do before he left. But the fact of doing it, the fact that there was nobody there, like, not to stop him that they would know, but, to where he would feel like, no, I'm not going to do this, or I don't know. So I see what they're saying about how being alone did give him, in my opinion, more of an opportunity to act on these things.
Yeah. No, he definitely did. I think that if he was on his own before this, we probably would have seen other crimes.
I agree.
Laura comes in with her membership for 2 months. Thank you, Laura. And a $4.99 super sticker. Peyton comes in saying, why didn't he flee the USAA leaving the sheath? That's a good question. He left the sheath behind. Why didn't he leave? Do you think that this could be a more of maybe evidence that it was purposefully left behind?
I don't know. I don't know that he would have wanted to get caught. I think he thought he was smarter than everybody else. And it wasn't that I feel like when we first heard about the sheath, it was almost as if, and again, nobody said this, but I feel like a lot of people got the idea that there was nothing on the sheath at all, except for this one spot. In that case, you might say, okay, maybe, but they said that, like, both girls' DNAs were on it, his DNA. So now we know that it wasn't like completely clean. So in that sense, I would say that he probably dropped it, didn't realize it. And I bet Xana, by like distracting him almost, he gets his eyes set on her, that he then forgets it. And that could be why every time they say Xana's name, I don't know if you guys noticed, but he clenches his jaw every single time, even in like prior hearings. It's the weirdest thing.
Yeah. I mean, that comes to, was he interrupted while he was upstairs, and that interruption made him forget, that knife, and he blames her or something of that nature. That's quite possible. One of the things that I noticed is when they asked him if he pled guilty, or when he was saying yes, the burglary one, he yelled that one out. It's like, did you burglarize the house with the intent to commit murder or something? He goes, yes, like super loud. And then the rest of them were like, did you commit murder of Maddie Mogan? And everybody else was just kind of like, yes. But that first one, burglary with the intent to commit murder, he got excited about that one.
I feel like he was pretty, seemed pretty confident about all of them. I mean, he wasn't as loud on the other ones, but I felt like he was kind of just like, yeah, I did it on all of them. I felt like I don't know what I was expecting. I wasn't expecting him to like cry and be like, I'm so sorry. I wasn't expecting that, but I just felt like it was even colder than I even imagined it to be.
Yeah, there was no expression, no embarrassment, no guilt, no nothing. It was just, he's like, yes, I understand. Yes. And
he wants to be the studied one.
Yeah. Oh, crazy stuff. But why do you think he didn't flee? I mean, he left the knife sheath behind. He must have known that he left it behind.
Because he didn't think he was going to get caught.
Even leaving it behind?
Yeah. I really don't think he thought he was going to get caught. I really think that he thought that he was going to finish his degree, be the teacher, and be able to use this as like one of the cases because they're unsolved. And like, what do we think the students, just like he did if he's proper Roger or whatever, like, asking questions like, how long do you think it took? Like all the questions that he would know the answers to. And that would make him the smarter one if he did it and didn't get caught, right? But he did get caught. Yeah. So he obviously wasn't the smartest one in the room.
Yeah. Shelley says, driving the car to Pennsylvania was to get out of the area. I think that definitely was a part to it. He was also wearing gloves and stuff. So, do you think that if he didn't leave the knife sheath behind, that he would have been as paranoid?
No, because I don't think there would have been enough. What are they going to say? We saw your car in the area?
No, I know that. What I'm saying is he was wearing these nitrate gloves. Would he have been as careful wearing those gloves and taking out his trash and stuff if he had not left the knife behind?
No, he had to know that. No, he had to know that knife sheath was going to eventually get to him, I think.
Yeah.
And he had to know that in Pennsylvania, I'm sure they do it everywhere, but he had to know that in Pennsylvania about getting the trash, because why would he be separating his trash?
That's weird too. I mean, even if you're separating it, it's not like the other people in the house don't have your DNA.
No, I don't. That's what I mean. Like, for being so smart, he was so stupid in some things.
Yeah, it's stupid to do that, because at the end of the day, there's going to be DNA in the trash, and it's going to come back as a sibling, as a parent, something to that nature, and that's going to be enough for Warren to swab you. So, Leslie says, Daniel, that's not fair. It's over. We'd share with you. There's some things I can't talk about still, because I think in the end, and this is just my opinion, I think in the end, there's going to be a civil thing that happens. And I think that these flights and when they were purchased and how they were purchased and when he decided to leave and all those other things are going to be a part of that. I think that's going to be a part of that. So that's why I can't go into those things. But what I can say is that this guy, from what I believe, purchased his plane ticket on December 10th and flew out December 11th, from one day to the next. And then the same day that he does this, he buys a plane ticket to go from Pullman back to Pennsylvania for on January 20th. So it sounds like they buy things in advance, don't you think?
So you mean he already had a ticket to take him back?
So let me put it up. So he bought a ticket on the 10th and flew out the 11th.
Oh, wow. I didn't see the one for 120.
Yeah, the same time, on the same phone call on 12/10 when he scheduled an additional flight for January 20th from Moscow Pullman to Philadelphia. So he had plans on driving back with Bryan Kohberger cross country and flying back. on January 20th. Now, I think that there's something here as far as him being fired for his job, because let me see. No, not that one. Because instruction starts January 9th. So this would have been like 10 days after that.
Oh.
That he's arriving, or his dad is taking a plane back.
We usually don't start till the third week in January, though. So maybe, I don't know. That's weird, though.
That's his first day of instruction for the term, January 9th.
It does tell me, though, that his father probably didn't know anything then, because why would he buy a ticket in advance?
Well, it's not so much that he knew. It's that why did they go down there to retrieve him? I think it had to do with the fact that they were worried. They were concerned.
Absolutely.
Now, did they know for a fact that he committed the crime at this point? Probably not. You know, he's probably trying to convince himself of many reasons why he's acting weird. And if he got fired as a TA, that could be a reasonable explanation to why he's acting up.
It could be.
You get what I'm saying? And so, you know, he very well, Howard Bloom talks about it in his book, that Bryan Kohberger tells him that bratty kids got him fired or whatever, but they can't do it, that he'll have an opportunity to arbitrate it or whatever the case may be. But I go back to, if this is the case, let's just say this is the case, he got fired and he's upset. You're flying out there because this plan was already in place, in my opinion. You know, that's what they all said, that they've had this plan in place. He's changing his plan to go out there. I think it has more to do more than just him getting fired. You know, and based on the book, what he was saying to people just a few days before he flew out there was that he was calling his son doctor and all these other things, and he was excited about it. That tells me he wasn't aware until the last minute that there was problems anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
You get what I'm saying?
Yeah, I do get that. I also think, so some people are in the chat are saying things like, could he just been being a father and stuff? My only problem with that is the kid's almost 30 years old. Like,
that's true.
Like, does he really need an escort? And if he does, if parents think that he does need an escort, what does that say about what they already think he's capable or not capable of?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and at the end of the day,
a role in why he wasn't able to move out yet. And so, I mean, we know that he said, like, you know, you'd save money, but I just mean like emotionally be able to move out.
Right. That, and I mean, if money was important to him, and he talked about that in his quota, and his parents are allegedly low income. You know, if you have his flight already scheduled and you have it paid out in advance, I get, you know, if my daughter had gotten fired from work and she lived cross country and it happened 4 days before I'm supposed to get there, I'm probably going to be on the phone with her for 4 days to make sure she's okay. But I'm not going to throw everything out the window just to fly out there as fast as I can, just so I can turn around and get her to come back as quickly as possible.
Especially not when she's 30.
And it's not like I understand that they had a meeting, and it was discussed because the termination letter on December 19th states that they had a meeting and they talked about it. So for those that think that he didn't know when he left that he was fired, he definitely knew. He didn't stick around for finals.
Well, that makes me think though, Daniel, right? So if he was telling his dad like that he was adamant that they did something wrong and he's going to fight to get his job back, he probably did the same thing about this if anybody confronted him about it. He probably did that same type of act. Like, no, this wasn't me. This was somebody else. You have to remember, somebody with narcissism, even narcissistic traits, they often don't take responsibility or accountability for their actions. Everything is everybody else's fault. It's never their fault. So I just don't see him being like, oh, let me take responsibility. So I think even if the parents and the sister did ask him once he got home, he probably looked at them like, how dare you even ask me that? As opposed to like, no, I would never. Does that make sense?
No, it makes sense. I don't know. I'm not I know, like, for instance, Richard Allen, he tried to,
don't forget.
I am psychic. Richard Allen was when he talked to his wife about the murders, he's like, he was trying to convince her by saying, I couldn't do this. I'm not that kind of person. I could never do this. And that was kind of his way of, instead of, convincing her with evidence, like, oh, it couldn't have been me because I was here or there or that. It was with emotion. You know who I am. That I couldn't be capable of this. I wouldn't be surprised if he did something similar.
That makes sense. Sarah just made a good point too, Daniel. So the dad buys a ticket out there and then buys another ticket later. Why didn't they just fly him home and then back?
That's true.
So that would mean like they wanted the car to go home, because why else? If anything, you could be like, okay, like we could save money, get the car serviced out there. Well, you could save miles and wear and tear. Like if the dad's already buying a ticket out there and then another ticket in January, why not just fly him back and forth by himself? That's a good point there.
Maybe he doesn't like flying.
Oh, stop it.
I think that's what they said when he got arrested. I think that was some of the speculation that because he had just
He'd be flying
driven
back and forth. If I knew that, I'd be like, all right, well, we got to go to a different state, buddy. So you're going to have to get used to it. He don't like flying. I can't.
Maybe he is afraid of something. He's afraid of heights. I don't know. But I mean, would somebody that lacks emotion be afraid to fly? Does that make sense to you?
Well, you still have fear. So if you lack guilt and remorse, so like a psychopath, they might lack guilt and remorse, but they still have fear. So you could still fear. But this is the thing, like, it's not really as much anxiety driven. So anxiety is a future focused emotion. It's about something that didn't happen yet. And these guys will get scared, like, oh my God, did I leave the knife sheath? Are they going to find something on the knife sheath? So I'm sure he was scared about getting caught, but not necessarily because he was morally, hurting. And he was like, I did such a bad thing. Like, it wouldn't be that. It would be more for like survival. It's kind of like when we say to people, you're not sorry you did it. You're sorry you got caught. Yeah. But in this sense, he now gets to be the center of attention. He gets to have his identity. He gets to be the new generation of serial killers that, Dr. Ramsden's going to teach about. And then maybe Dr. Ramsden's going to have a TA and that TA will take over. And like, I think he really thought this out as far as how he's like now the next generation of a serial killer that we're going to be studying. And that has to give him a sense of like joy and pride in some sick way. But it is smart to study them in a way too. You know what I mean? So it's like,
I don't know. I still strongly suspect, this is my speculation, that Bryan Kohberger pled out because he saw the writing on the wall that he was going to be found guilty. And it wasn't necessarily that he was afraid of the death aspect of it, as much as the fact that he would have to maintain this facade that he's innocent for decades while the appeal process goes through, and he wouldn't be able to tell his story.
So I would add to that and say that by him pleading guilty, he gets to have the narrative back. So now he gains control again. So I feel like it's a very out of control feeling to go to court and not know if the jury's going to believe you, if they're going to. So like that must be a very out of control feeling. So by saying guilty, and he was able to stand up there, raise his right hand and be like, yes, like, and he was in control. He didn't have to give anything up. He didn't have to tell them where the knife was. So now that's still a fantasy in his head that if someday he has something in his head that he thinks he's going to get out someday, maybe the laws will change. I mean, whatever he's rationalizing, keeping that knife secret of where that knife is like it's like his hope or his fantasy to like someday he'll go back and reunite with it. Does that make sense? It's sick. So if it doesn't make sense, that's probably not a bad thing. But if,
Yeah, no, I agree with you there that there's probably that aspect to it. I think it was a lot of it about control. Do you think that maybe that was part of the plea deal as well? That, hey, we're going to plea, but all I want to say is guilty, and that be the underlining meaning behind that. The reason why he wants to just say that and not give up anything is because he wants to be able to control the narrative.
Okay, well, this is where I would say Ann Taylor is pretty thorough. I think she's the one that knows the law and was like, this is what he's willing to do. Like, so I feel like she played hardball and they were like, okay. Like, yeah, I feel like, was there even a negotiation there?
I don't think so. I mean, how much negotiation is he doing over the weekend? And
unbelievable.
Like not even a business day to think about it.
There should be a law that you should have. Now, let me ask you a question. The judge did say to him, "Is that your signature on the page?" And he called it. I can't remember the exact thing, but I got the understanding. And tell me if you got something different. That he wrote something down. Could he have written down his version of what happened?
No, I'll pull it up. It's already out. It's nothing like that.
Well, that was wishful thinking.
His signature looks like crap. That's about it. Let me pull it up real quick. Hopefully I don't have to.
I was hoping at least they would make him write something down, and almost like a confession. Like, I'm almost unsatisfied that they didn't make him prove more that it was him.
I am too. I thought they were going to do that. You know, somebody had sent me another case where I think it was oh wait, hold on. We have a new document.
Oh wow.
I have not seen this. It's one page, and I think this is the same thing. It says, I hereby admit responsibility to count 1 burglary to which requires the following elements. November 13, 2022, Latah County, State of Idaho, the unlawful entry of residence located at 1122 King Road with the intent to commit the crime of murder. And then it goes on to count 2, where he admits responsibility to count 2, which was the murder in the first degree against Madison Mogan. The second one is Kaylee Gonsalves. And I think this is the order in which they passed away. Maddie first, then Kaylee. Then it was Xana Kernodle, and then Ethan Chapin.
It's terrible. But what would be the difference if I sign that, or you sign that, or Kohberger sign that? Like, what makes it to where he's like, no, really, believe me, it's me?
Well, that's why the state had to prove. They did their little proof of their case, or their
but I feel like he even did lackluster. He's like, well, we don't know that it was the exact house, but he was around there 24. I'm like, what are you doing?
I agree.
That was just ridiculous.
Yeah, I thought so. I was like, this is the same one from the other day. I was like, I thought I saw this already. It's right here also. They put it twice, jerks. And then there was the plea agreement.
So, Daniel, my family keeps calling me. I don't know why. So I might jump off of here because they don't usually keep calling. I'm sure it's nothing big. I'm sure they're just like, Mom, are we going to eat or something stupid? I'm sure.
All right. Will do. Well, thank you. Thank you. I'm going to end this anyways here pretty soon. I'm just going to answer some more questions. Thank you, Dr. Vona, for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me, you guys. I'll see you.
All righty. Bye. All right, Dr. Vona, ladies and gentlemen. All right, so I'm going to answer a few questions real quick. PJ comes in $4.99. Why take the knife sheath into the house if you weren't actually going to use it or needed to commit the murders? Well, I think it's because it sounds like he had other objects in his hands, at least a container of some sort, right? And the Dickies jumpsuit doesn't have a belt loop for him to put the K-bar knife through. So if he's walking around with it just kind of exposed, it leaves him an opportunity to accidentally cut himself, or nick himself or something. And that could leave DNA. So I think that's probably why he took it. And I think I think the moment got to him. I mean, if you go back to the Linda Lane footage, he's pulling in, and on that last time when he goes around, he actually goes around at a much faster rate than he does the other times. But while he's going up there, you hear a horn. I think that's him grabbing the bag or the container and putting it on his lap and hitting the horn at the same time. And he's already making mistakes. The PCA talks about how he either tries to do a 3-point turn or a U-turn or something, but he can't. And then he goes forward to the King-Queen intersection, does a 3-point turn there, and then heads back. So he's already got nervous. He's fumbling around. He's already making mistakes. So it could have been just easily as that. It's just a mistake. Yeah, but he killed young females in their sleep with a knife, not prison inmate males. That's true. That is true. He did. He did. And, I ain't going to lose no sleep if I heard, Bryan Kohberger got some prison justice. Good riddance is what I would say. But I don't know. I think that his biggest probably worry is if he doesn't join a gang, typically, like, if from again, my experience is very limited. From what I've seen on documents and 48 hours and all these other shows, is like a gang will approach a person And if they don't join the gang, then they become a problem. And yeah, so we'll see how it works for him. Thank you. And GSUPM says $10 comes in and says, when do you think the parents arrived in Idaho for the plea hearing? When do you think parents arrived? Probably the day before. I would have assumed. The day before. They all flew out there pretty quickly, one day to the next. All right. I'm going to kind of scroll through here real quick and see if there's anything else that you guys want me to answer before we call it a show. You guys be safe tonight. If you guys are playing with fireworks, make sure your hands aren't in surrounding the firework when it goes off. No injuries or accidents, please. And that goes to me too. A couple of years back, I accidentally put a bottle rocket the wrong way in the tube, and it exploded right there, and the base of it, which was wood, like shattered, and it hit me in the chest. Fortunately, it hit me like flat side to my chest and not like a pointy side. But yeah, that was a pretty crazy situation. I don't like fireworks after that. Yeah, but it hit me and not my car, so I was okay with that. Looks like they tried to take care of it before July. It says June, yet scratched it out. Yeah, I saw that. But here it is, though. Like I said, this is the plea agreement, and this one is signed June 30th, 2025. So right away, guys, right away. And let me just double check if my memory serves me correct. Was that Monday? I don't think so. Yeah, it was Monday. So they had the plea deal on Monday, but from what I understand is they had already informed the families of the night before that they were going to accept it. It says here the defendant will be sentenced to 10 years fixed for count 1. The defendant will receive the fixed consecutive life sentences for counts 2 to 5. The state may seek restitution orders regarding funeral expenses and crime victims' compensation reimbursement in the amount to be determined, which isn't enough, man. They talked about it was like $5,000 per person and $10,000 for the burglary itself. It's not a lot. All righty, guys. I think that's going to do it for me. I don't see any more supers. You guys have a safe night. I'll be back on. I'm going to get with Howard Bloom here after this. And don't forget, tomorrow night, I want to say it's going to be tomorrow night. I'm going to have somebody on the channel. This person was in the courtroom yesterday or the other day when Bryan Kohberger pled guilty to 5 counts, 1 of burglary, 4 of homicide. They're going to be on the show. We're going to talk about their experience, and we got some other things that we're going to talk about. You don't want to miss it. Like, comment, subscribe, ring that notification bell. You guys know what to do. I'll be back tomorrow. Until then, peace.
But it's too late now. I remember you and me, and how careless we could be.
All day and all night, we'd stay up, it felt so right. We were so young, we were so dumb. We would get drunk and then hook up. We were okay, we were alright, staying awake till the sunrise. We were in love, couldn't stop us, like a good drug, never run. We hook up in my car, driving so far, play you guitar, you'd show me your art, let down our guards, think with our hearts, stare at the stars, we were never apart, drinking too young, way too much fun, out in the sun, hoping when it's gone, took you to prom, dance to our song, dance all night long till the lights come on. Late now, I remember everything, and how careless we could be, and how careless we could could be.